So you want me to? Right.
A lot of the devotees hungry to hear from you and get your association. Are you able to hear us well and see us also?
Yes, I can see you. I can see. Yes.
Loud and clear.
Can you all hear me also?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
And see you also.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. Hey, I've also got Sundarananda Prabhu who is on the call with us. He wanted to welcome you also. So I'll pass across to Sundarananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances, all Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, thank you very much for joining us. We know that your voice has been down for speaking with so many devotees for so many weeks, but you still agreed to come to speak to us today. And we have had a small introduction already, so I don't want to take your any more time. But please accept heartfelt gratitude from all of us in the UK congregation, especially at this time of need. We need your encouraging words and the nectar that we can immerse into Krishna consciousness. More elevated, joyous, but most importantly, closer to Krishna. In a traditional way, everybody can't join me, but I would say on everybody's behalf, 3 Hari Bols to welcome you. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj.
So, should I start? Sankirtan?
Yes, Maharaj, you can start.
Okay. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I hope everyone is muting their mics. Is the noise coming from my side or from somebody else's side?
It is coming from us.
Okay.
People join their unmuting their mics, but please everyone mute your mics and mute your videos so that Maharaj can begin his class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I am very, very happy to be in your midst this afternoon. I wish I could have been with you in happier circumstances, but nevertheless, that is the nature of this world. There are always ups and downs, sometimes happiness, sometimes distress, sometimes pain, sometimes pleasure. And somehow or the other, we have to tolerate these variations and just remain fixed in our Krishna consciousness. There is much in this world that can make our minds depressed. There's much that happens to us and to others around us that will probably create some negativity in our mind. But if we keep Krishna consciousness as our focus, and no matter what happens, we just carry on, we go ahead in our Krishna consciousness, then ultimately everything will be all right. And I dedicate this talk to the devotees who have recently passed away from this world due to the coronavirus and perhaps some other reasons as well. Shruti Dharma Prabhu, of course, had his underlying problem, and he happened to pass away also at this time. And I also remember him very deeply now as a very, very dear friend. It is surprising how so many people considered him to be a very close friend. And I remember that the last lecture that he gave, and that was soon after he was detected with cancer, and then he was going through the therapies, which were in and of themselves quite painful. He gave one class in the temple in the Bhaktivedanta manner. And in his usual inimitable style, he was saying that when he went to the doctor initially asked him for his blood group, and then he said, "B positive." Now, I don't know whether his blood group was actually B positive or anything else, but I think he meant it to say that his whole motto of life was that one should be positive and not negative. So I think that was a very wonderful lesson that he gave us in the last few days of being here. So, and especially at difficult times like this, when the coronavirus pandemic is all over, we can remember his words, be positive. And of course, our way of being positive, the scriptures' instructions about the way we should be positive, is that we should go deeper into our Krishna consciousness. And therefore, this series of talks that we are all that is beginning with this talk, and we'll have other speakers coming up in the next few days, is going inside or going within. Because everywhere we look outside, there is cause for despondency, for despair, for becoming morose, because there are statistics rolling in every single day. So many people have died, so many people have got infected, there's a lockdown, so many problems, economic problems, psychological problems, all sorts of problems outside. So therefore, at this time, it is all the more important when the mind may perhaps be plagued with fear, anxiety, some degree of lamentation, concern, etc., that we really focus on Krishna consciousness. And I thought that at this time, I'd try to make you laugh a little bit in Krishna consciousness by discussing a very beautiful section from the Nectar of Devotion. And before I come on to that section proper, I'll give you a brief background. Now I think I'm addressing a group of practicing devotees, isn't it? Everyone on this conference is already a practicing devotee, and you all have a decent understanding of the basics of Krishna consciousness. So you are aware that there are certain mellows or rasas in which the individual living entity can have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains, citing from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, that there are 12 such mellows, transcendental mellows. 5 of them are primary. Shanta, the mellow of neutrality; Dasya, the mellow of servitude; Sakhya, the mellow of friendship, of fraternity; Vatsalya, the mellow of parental affection; and the conjugal rasa, which is the Madhuri rasa. So we are all very familiar with these 5 primary rasas. Now these primary rasas generally are to be found only in very, very advanced devotees. Only at a very advanced stage of prema, of Krishna consciousness, does one actually become fixed in one of these rasas, which is the constitutional position of that particular living entity in the spiritual world. So, in addition to these 5, there are 7 other rasas which are called the secondary rasas. The primary rasas are constant, fixed. A particular jiva will have a particular rasa which will be revealed at the appropriate time by Krishna from within to that devotee. And let's say there's a devotee who has been established in the Sakhya Ras, the mood of friendship with Krishna, and he's a cowherd boy in Goloka Vrindavan. Maybe another devotee is in the Vatsalya Ras, following in the footsteps of Mother Yashoda in Nanda Maharaj. Another may be in the Madhurya Ras, and so on. So for any given devotee, the rasa, the primary rasa, will be the same, and it will be permanent, it will be fixed. So these are the primary 5 rasas. And then there are the secondary rasas, the 7 rasas. These are called Gauna rasa or a Gauna rati, as opposed to the Mukhya rasa or the Mukhya rati. So these secondary rasas are very interesting because they do not exist permanently in any given devotee. Even if that person is on the topmost platform of Krishna consciousness in the spiritual world, but these rasas, the secondary rasas, they come and go. They appear and disappear according to the situation in order to nourish the primary rasa. So that is how the secondary rasas are considered indirect. Srila Prabhupada explains that they are still to be considered, they are still to be considered part of Bhakti Yoga because they are performed from the platform of pure love for Krishna. So those secondary rasas, which are 7 in number, are number 1, Hasya. Hasya means comedy, laughter. When Krishna or something or someone connected to Krishna becomes an object of joking or some humor, and that is relished by the devotees, then that is called the Hasya Rati or Hasya Rasa. Then there is Adbhuta Rasa. Adbhuta means there is a sense of wonder that is evoked. For example, when the cowherd boys would see Krishna killing a powerful demon, then the sense of wonder would be invoked in their hearts, and they would wonder, they would think, my God, how has Krishna done such a wonderful feat? Yes. Then there is a Veera Rasa, the rasa of chivalry. And Bhishma Dev, for example, was engaged in fighting with Arjuna and Krishna was relishing the Veera Rasa, or the rasa of chivalry, with Bhishma. And it is said that when Krishna was shooting, or rather Bhishma was shooting arrows at Krishna, then Krishna was feeling them to be like garlands of flowers. Yes? So this is the Veera Rasa. Then the Karuna Rasa. Karuna means compassion. So when you feel compassionate towards someone, or also you feel very sad about something or someone, so your sense of pity, your sense of feeling kind and merciful to someone is invoked. That is called the Karuna Rasa. Then there is a Raudra Rasa, and I'm sure we are all very familiar with that. Raudra means anger. So all of us at some point in our lives, we have got angry. So that is anger. So anger is to be found even in Krishna consciousness, although I must caution you that the next time you get anger, don't justify your anger by saying that it's one of the 7 secondary rasas and therefore it's okay that I got angry. Sometimes anger is utilized in Krishna consciousness, like Hanuman utilized anger to burn down Lanka and to fight on behalf of Lord Ram in the battle against Ravana. Or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself invoked anger against Madhai and Jagai. So we see that in Krishna consciousness these things are there. And then there is the Bhayanaka Rasa, which is dread or horror or fear. So these aspects also are found sometimes in devotional service. And finally there is Bibhatsa Rasa, which is ghastliness. That is rarely found, but it happens. So these are the 7 secondary rasas. So of them the first one is Hasya or comedy. And that's the one that I'd like to discuss today. Now, as I said, it's important to remember that these 7 rasas are temporary in the sense that they come and they go. They appear for some time and then they go when the circumstance no longer demands it. Imagine if the secondary rasas were also to become permanent. That would be quite awkward. As a daily, everyday kind of situation, imagine if you were interacting with someone who was laughing all the time, 24 hours a day. He was just laughing and laughing and laughing. And probably you wouldn't be able to relate to that person. Initially it might sound very nice and you might be happy because there's someone at least who's happy in life, who's laughing all the time. But if the person is laughing all the time, 24/7, then there's more likely he's got some psychological, disorder or something. Similarly, once in a while we get angry, it's one thing. But if we're angry all the time, then there's something wrong there. You see? So let's talk about the Hasya Rati or the Hasya Rasa, the transcendental mellow of comedy or laughter. Laughter in ecstasy, as Srila Prabhupada translates it in his summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he calls Nectar of Devotion. So Srila Prabhupada explains that this Hasya Rasa is found often in young people or in a combination of children and old people. And he goes on to give examples which Srila Rupa Goswami gives in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So these are some very, very beautiful and nectarian short pastimes which will illustrate the idea of the Hasya Rasa. And I hope that by reflecting on these little pastimes, even if you are for some reason despondent or morose, by looking at all that's going on around you or in your own life perhaps, it will give you some cheer and it will give you some happiness and enthusiasm to continue on in your Krishna consciousness. So the first little humorous pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions is that one time an old mendicant came to the door of Mother Yashoda in Vrindavan. And Krishna was a small child at that time. So when Krishna saw this old mendicant, he became afraid and he ran to his mother. And he told Mother Yashoda please, please take care. I think that this old mendicant is going to grab me and push me into his begging basket, and is going to kidnap me and take me away from here. So when the old mendicant, one commentator says it's Narad Muni, but in any case, Srila Rupa Goswami, as far as I know, doesn't clearly specify that. But the old mendicant, when he heard this, he was laughing to himself. As Srila Prabhupada says here, he tried to hide his smiling face. Although he could not do so, he immediately expressed his smiling. So the mendicant was at the doorway, and he was clearly hearing what Krishna was saying. So Krishna was saying this actually for the benefit of not only Mother Yashoda, but also for the old mendicant, who was obviously not just some ordinary devotee from whom Krishna wanted to run away. He must have been a great exalted devotee. And so Krishna wanted to engage in pastimes of the Hasya Rasa with this mendicant. So the mendicant tried to conceal his laughter but could not do so. And finally he smiled. So Mother Yashoda enjoyed this, the old mendicant enjoyed it, and of course, naturally, Krishna also enjoyed it. Another pastime that Rupa Goswami mentions here is that one time Krishna was with his cowherd boyfriends, and one of the friends told Krishna that, Krishna, if you can open your mouth and close your eyes, then I will place in your mouth a very delicious sweet, which is sugar candy and yogurt mixed together. So very trustingly, Krishna closed his eyes and opened his mouth. And then the cowherd boy, in the midst of all the other cowherd boys, took a flower which had a very bitter taste, and he put it into Krishna's mouth. And when Krishna closed his mouth, he naturally bit into the flower, and his tongue also tasted the taste of the flower, which was very bitter. And then his face puckered up, and he made a peculiar facial expression that indicated that the taste of the flower was not very pleasant. And at that time, everybody, all the friends who had gathered there, all began to laugh. Now, one of the great things we have in the BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, apart from the fact that they've actually just simply published these beautiful books with all the verse by verse, the Sanskrit verses, and then the translations and the commentary of Srila Prabhupada and so on. And they've done such a good job. Another excellent feature of the BBT work is they have beautiful paintings. They have commissioned these paintings from the devotees, and each of them is exquisite and really is very perfect object for meditation. Incidentally, I would like to urge you at this time to acquire this book called Krishna Art Book. It is a collection of most of the paintings that have been commissioned by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and it's all in one volume. It's a very large book. So it's really a good book because you can just spend all day looking at it, and you can think of the pastimes, and on the other page there is a brief narration of what that pastime is all about. So it's wonderful at times like pandemics especially, or at any other time, that you gaze at these pictures, and they will also serve as objects of meditation afterwards. So many of these pictures, they actually represent some passages from either the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita or the Nectar of Devotion and so on. So for this pastime, which I just narrated, about the cowherd boy putting this bitter tasting flower into the mouth of Krishna Here is the picture. I'll just show it to you and I hope you can all see it. Can you all see this? Sankirtan?
Yes, we can see. It's a slight shadow. Maybe you can...
Yeah, now?
That's it, yes, we can see. Yes.
Can you all see this? Yeah, you can see Krishna sitting there, very trustingly closing his eyes and opening his mouth. And the cowherd boy is placing the flower into the mouth of Krishna. And the other boys are expectantly waiting for the fun to happen. Yes? So, sometimes we ask the question, why does deception happen in this material world? Because it happens in the spiritual world. But that is transcendental deception that happens on the platform of love. And the deception that happens in the material world is fraught with so many painful things. So obviously deception in the material world is bad, but on the spiritual platform, such deception has its own charm and ecstasy. So this is the second pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in connection with the Hasya Rasa. A third pastime that he mentions is that one time a palmist, a palm reader, a palmist came to the house of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And naturally, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda welcomed him. Someone's mic needs to be muted. Yeah. Okay. So, and as you all know, being completely under the mood of Vatsalya, of parental affection for Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda could never even imagine in their dreams that Krishna was a Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them, Krishna remained their little boy, that's all. So they were anxious that they had to protect Krishna, they were concerned about his welfare, just like any other parents of this world are concerned about the welfare of their children. So when the palmist came into Nanda Maharaj's house, Nanda Maharaj anxiously asked this palmist to look at the palm of Krishna and tell him what he saw in the palm, whether there was any danger, whether there was something auspicious or inauspicious, and so on. So the palmist, he smiled, he laughed. He was trying to conceal his laughter. Again, here Srila Prabhupada says, the palmist began to smile, and Nanda Maharaj asked him, "My dear sir, why are you laughing and why are you covering your face?" So naturally, the palmist saw the irony of the situation and the humor of the situation, because he was a great devotee and he understood very well that this little child was not just an ordinary village child and some ordinary cowherd boy. He was none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So, being a great devotee, and he laughed because Nanda Maharaj was asking this peculiar question. Why was it peculiar? Because here is Krishna, the husband and the master of the goddess of fortune, the supreme controller of everything and everyone, the original source of everything. And here is Nanda Maharaj asking him to see the fortune of this boy. So the palmist laughed, but he did not want to be disrespectful to Nanda Maharaj, who was completely under the spell of Yogamaya, thinking Krishna to be his dear son. So he tried to conceal his face so that his smile could not be seen. But obviously Nanda Maharaj was able to discern the smile on the palmist's face, and he also saw that he was trying to conceal it. So in any case, this is another little humorous pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions here. So Prabhupada also says that in such a laughing ecstasy of love, Krishna or matters pertaining to Krishna are the cause of laughter. And then Rupa Goswami has given a very interesting analysis of hasya or laughter. And he has said that there are 6 types of laughter. Okay? Now, we probably have experienced all these types of laughter. We have seen others exhibiting this laughter. Perhaps we ourselves have also done that. So what are the 6 kinds of laughter? The first is hasita, or rather smita. Smita is a slight smile. So many of the devotees in the movement are called Smita Krishna Das. One of our sannyasis in the movement is Smita Krishna Swami Maharaj. He lives in Sweden. So smita means a smile, but it indicates a very soft or a very slight smile. And Krishna's smile is also very famous because when he is playing on the flute, standing on the banks of the Yamuna, so he has this little smile, a small smile. So to illustrate smita, which is the first type of laughter, which is a slight smile, and which is characterized by the fact that one can discern that the person is smiling by the changes in the eyes and the cheeks, but one cannot see the teeth. So that is the first kind of laughter or smile, smita. So the pastime that is mentioned here is that once Krishna was stealing butter and yogurt, and he went into the house of some gopi, and the gopi's name was Jarati. So Jarati, of course, understood that Krishna was coming hurriedly into the house, and she went there to also catch him. And at that time, Krishna became very afraid, very fearful to see Jarati coming. And in his fear, he spoke to his brother Balaram, and he said, "My dear brother, I have stolen yogurt. Just see, Jarati is coming hurriedly to catch me." When Krishna was thus seeking the shelter of Baladeva because he was being chased by Jarati, the great sages in the heavenly planets began to smile. This kind of smiling is called smita. So the sages in the heavenly planets, they can see what's going on here. So they have that kind of eyesight, just like when you look at some ants on the floor and you examine them, you can see what's going on. And when a whole colony of ants starts moving around the floor, you can see what's happening. So for the ants, they cannot understand how we are in a position to see them. So similarly, the residents of the higher planets, they can see us. All the way up to Brahma. Brahma can see the entire creation as if it's like a walnut or an amalaki fruit in the palm of his hand. So these sages had been intently watching Krishna's pastimes. The demigods were all behind the clouds, relishing Krishna's pastimes of Vrindavan, because such pastimes are very, very rare and not to be seen even in Vaikuntha, where the Lord is worshipped in a mood of awe and reverence. So in this pastime, Krishna was guilty. He had stolen butter, and Jarati, the gopi, elderly gopi, understood what Krishna was doing, and she was hurrying towards Krishna. Krishna saw her coming and he became afraid. Now here is personified fear running away from a village gopi. He of whom fear personified is afraid even. What to speak of Krishna being fear personified? Fear personified is afraid of Krishna. And yet Krishna was now afraid of this simple village gopi called Jarati. And he ran to his older brother Baladeva's shelter and said, "Look, I am guilty, I have stolen butter, and now the Jarati is coming to punish me." So looking at such beautiful pastimes, the sages in the heavenly planets began to smile. So this was smita. Their smile was smita, meaning that you can discern it was a smile by the cheeks and the eyes, but the teeth were not visible. The second type of laughter or smile is called hasita. Hasita is what we would call just a plain smile. Here also you can see the movements of the eyes and the cheeks, but you can also begin to see the teeth. Some degree of the teeth are visible. So this is hasita. So here also there is a beautiful pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami narrates. And it goes like this, that one time Krishna came to the house of Srimati Radharani. This is after her so-called marriage to her so-called husband Abhimanyu. Now, as you know, Abhimanyu's mother's name was Jatila and his sister's name was Kutila. So Jatila and Kutila, their role in Krishna's pastimes is to play spoil sport. And in that way, they actually deepen the relish of the Madhurya Rasa which Krishna and Srimati Radharani relish in Vrindavan. Actually, of course, nobody but Krishna is Radharani's consort or husband, but for the sake of relishing the pastime of Madhurya Rasa, these things happen in Vrindavan. So Krishna had gone surreptitiously to meet Radharani in her husband's home. And naturally, stealthily, he crept in and went inside. And Jatila and Kutila did not know that Krishna had come inside. They were always keeping vigil. They always kept a hawk's eye to see whether Krishna had actually was coming or not, because they were always knew that Krishna was always mischievous, he was up to no good, and he would come there and create a disturbance. But somehow or the other, they were not able to notice how Krishna came into the house and he was talking to Srimati Radharani. Now it so happened, by the arrangement of Yogamaya, that Abhimanyu, who wasn't present in the house when Krishna came, now started approaching the house. He had gone somewhere and he was returning home. And as he was nearing home and Krishna saw him from the window, and he became alarmed. He said, "Now what will happen? If Abhimanyu comes here and he sees me with Srimati Radharani, now that's going to be trouble." So, utilizing his skills as an expert disguiser, he's an expert dramatist also, Krishna, so he can change his voice. He's a good ventriloquist, so he can throw his voice, he can speak in different accents and dialects, he can speak in different voices, he can change his appearance. So he quickly took on the form of Abhimanyu. And he went to Jatila and started talking as if he himself was Abhimanyu. And because he was looking like Abhimanyu, talking like Abhimanyu, his mannerisms were like Abhimanyu, so Jatila had no clue that this was Krishna disguised as Abhimanyu. So Krishna disguised as Abhimanyu told Jatila that just see that cunning Krishna, the mischievous Krishna is coming towards our house and he has disguised himself as me just to try to fool all of us. So I think it's time that he needs some good punishment. So Jatila became infuriated upon seeing who she thought was Krishna in disguise, but who was instead actually her own son. And then she accosted him and she began to beat him. And she started to scold him and beat him. And the real Abhimanyu began to protest very loudly. My dear mother, I am your real son. I am Abhimanyu. Why are you doing this to me? And at that time, all the other gopis, the young gopis who were the friends of Srimati Radharani, they were also around. So when they saw this, they started smiling. So why did they not laugh even louder? I don't know. Perhaps it is that they did not want to show their mirth or their happiness at this pastime, lest Abhimanyu and Jatila and Kutila get upset. So anyway, this the laughing or the smiling of the gopis when they watched this particular episode is called smita. And in the Nectar of Devotion, there is this painting. So I'll just show it to you. It is on this side. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see, Maharaj.
This one.
Yes, on the right-hand side.
Yes. And you can see Krishna, disguised as Abhimanyu, is behind Jatila. And poor Abhimanyu is, as you say, getting the sauce from his real mother. Yes?
Yes.
So these are the pastimes that happened in Vrindavan. So, spiritual life is also about fun, it's also about humor. In the spiritual world also, there's a lot of all this going on. One time I remember there was a Mayavadi sannyasi who was saying in a lecture that for the life of me, I cannot understand what these Vaishnavas think they will do when they go back to Vaikuntha. What will they do? What activities will they do? Will they just sit face to face with God and just keep looking at each other? So he was speaking rather disrespectfully, actually. So indeed, but it's a question that is valid, that what do we do when we go back to the spiritual world? So as devotees of the Lord, we understand that the identity and the individuality of the living entity is eternal. Those who are impersonalists believe that when we get liberated, then our individuality is extinguished and we merge ourselves into the impersonal Brahman. However, that is not the case. For devotees, we understand that the living entity, the spirit soul, when he becomes a pure devotee, will go back to the spiritual world and will remain there eternally for endless time, participating in Lord Krishna's innumerable nectarian pastimes. And in these pastimes, sometimes there is humor, sometimes there is anger, and there are varieties of rasas relished there, all of which happen on the platform of pure love for Krishna. So this was the second type of laughter or smiling, which is called hasita. The third type of smile or laughter is called vihasita. In this, the features of the previous type of smiling, that is the movement of the eyes and the cheeks, are further or shall we say deepened, and the display of teeth also increases. So now one can see the teeth even more clearly. They are distinctly visible. So that is called vihasita. Or you could also call it audible laughing. And the pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions here is again in connection to the Gopi Jarati. So Krishna and the cowherd boys, they went to steal butter from the house of Jarati. And so they stealthily started going in. And they knew that Jarati was lying down and asleep. Actually, Jarati was not asleep. She was only pretending to sleep, because she knew the cowherd boys were coming to steal butter. Now the beauty of the so-called anger of the elderly gopis is that they actually loved the pastimes of Krishna coming to steal butter from their homes. They actually wanted Krishna to come and do that. However, just to make it look more real and to make that pastime more relishable, to make it more nectarian, they would also get angry and they would reprimand Krishna. Sometimes they would threaten him and so on. So anyway, so as Krishna, who was engaged in stealing butter, approached the house of Jatila, and he assured his friends, because his friends must have been a little nervous, what if Jarati is awake? So he assured his friends and said, my dear friends, don't worry. Jarati, the old lady, is now sleeping very profoundly because she is breathing very deeply. Let us silently steal butter and yogurt without making any disturbance. But the old lady Jarati was not sleeping. She was hearing everything very clearly, and then she began to smile. And she couldn't restrain herself. So the smile that she displayed at that time is called Vihasita, the third type of smile, which is the audible smile, when the teeth are distinctly visible. Then the fourth type of smile or laughter is called Avahasita, which is kind of intense laughter in which the nose swells and the eyes also squint. So in addition to the features of the previous types of smiles, the additional feature here is that the eyes squint and the nose gets puffed up or it swells. So the pastime that Srila Rupa Goswami narrates here is that in the morning, Mother Yashoda woke up Krishna as usual, as was the practice every day. Now she did not know that every night Krishna would slip away from home after she had put him to bed. And all night long he would be with the gopis doing the Rasa Leela and such pastimes. And sometime before his scheduled time of awakening, he would slip back into the house and he would slip into bed and pretend as if he had been sleeping all night. So when Mother Yashoda would wake him up, she would have no clue that her beloved son had been out all night long. We see the perverted reflections of all these rasas in the material world. Also, we have young boys and perhaps girls also who are out going for their programs late night. They come back, the parents don't have a clue where the boys and girls are going. So this is a perverted reflection of what's happening in the spiritual world. So anyway, so when Mother Yashoda woke up Krishna at this time, then she saw the marks of some oxides and other cosmetics and other things, and she began to wonder. And Rupa Goswami says here, she asked Krishna, my dear son, why do your eyes look like they have been smeared with some oxides? Have you dressed yourself with the blue garments of Baladev? So, because in the night when he was having pastimes with the gopis, perhaps some cosmetics here or there would have got interchanged. So then, when Mother Yashoda was addressing Krishna in that way, another gopi who was nearby began to laugh. This avahasita laughter, the intense laughter in which the nose swells up and the eyes squint, and of course the teeth are visible, the laughter is audible, etc. Srila Prabhupada says that the gopi knew that Krishna had been enjoying the rasa dance and that Mother Yashoda could not detect her son's activities or understand how he had become covered with the gopi's makeup. Her smiling was in the avahasita feature. So that was the fourth type of smiling or laughter. The fifth type is called apahasita, which is uncontrollable laughter. And you have all the characteristics of the previous types of laughter, and you add to it that the shoulders shake and tears flow from the eyes. Actually, sometimes tears flow from the eyes not only when one is crying out of sorrow or lamentation, but also when one is laughing too much. If one laughs uncontrollably, in such cases also there may be tears flowing. So in this kind of laughter, apahasita, the characteristics of the previous types of laughter are to be found, and also the shaking of shoulders and the flowing of tears from the eyes. Uncontrollable laughter. So the pastime that Rupa Goswami narrates here is that Jarati, the old gopi, she one time instructed young Krishna, who was only a child, to dance. So she would sing and clap her hands, and Krishna began dancing. Now this was common in Vrindavan, because the older gopis would love to come and just see Krishna perform his childhood pastimes. So they would come there, and sometimes they would sing, they would clap their hands, and Krishna would heartily oblige them. And then he would dance, and they would feel intense ecstasy, devotional ecstasy, by seeing Krishna doing that. So in this case, when Jarati happened to ask Krishna to sing and dance, Krishna happily obliged. And Narad Muni, the great devotee, was watching this, and he was astonished. And Narad Muni was astonished because that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of all the big demigods like Brahma, and at whose beck and call all these big personalities dance, was now himself dancing at the beck and call of a simple village lady from Vrindavan. So Narad Muni became so overwhelmed seeing this fun that he began to laugh in great ecstasy. And tears rolled down his eyes, his cheeks, and his shoulders were shaking, and because his teeth were very much visible. And Srila Prabhupada explains here that on account of the glaring effulgence from his teeth, the clouds in the skies turned silver. So this is the apahasita, or the uncontrollable laughter of Narad Muni when he saw Krishna dancing at the beck and call of Jarati, the gopi, old gopi. And finally, the sixth type of laughter, which Srila Rupa Goswami mentions, is called ati hasita. Ati means, too much. So this is extreme laughter. So in addition to all the characteristics of the previous types of laughter, the additional features here is that the person who is displaying this ati hasita laughter claps his hands and leaps or jumps in the air. So this is an extreme form of laughter. And the pastime that he mentions here is that Krishna was teasing this old maidservant gopi, Jarati. So Jarati seems to be a common feature in many of these pastimes here in this chapter. And by the way, this is the 45th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion. For those of you who are interested to read more, in part 4, chapter 45. So Krishna was basically making fun of Jarati in good humor. When children, little babies or small children make fun of old people, then it's fun for everybody. But if an older person makes fun of another old person, then that's not so funny for the person at the receiving end. So therefore, if you remember at the beginning, I said that Srila Prabhupada mentions it's often found between children and old people also. So here, baby Krishna is making fun of Jarati. And what does he say? My dear good woman, the skin of your face is now slackened, and so your face exactly resembles a monkey's. As such, the king of the monkeys, Balimukha, has selected you as his worthy wife. Actually speaking, it's quite insulting, but it was said in childish humor, and in Vrindavan these kind of humorous pastimes would happen. Perhaps if somebody were to say it in this day and age to another person, it would be very, very offensive. But in Vrindavan, these pastimes are extremely relishable. So then, when Jarati was being teased by Krishna in this way, she replied. She gave a response, a repartee. And what did she say? She said that she was aware of the fact that the king of the monkeys was trying to marry her. But she had already taken shelter of Krishna, the killer of many powerful demons, and therefore she had already decided to marry Krishna instead of the king of monkeys. So this was a sarcastic reply from Jarati. And when the cowherd girls present there heard this, then they all began to laugh loudly, they began to clap their hands, they began to jump up and down. And this laughter is called Ati Hasita. And there are also other types of laughter that may come because of other indirect sarcastic remarks, and Srila Rupa Goswami also gives another example of that. So much for laughing ecstasy or the relishing of the Hasya Rasa in Vrindavan between Krishna and his dear devotees. So I hope you enjoyed hearing from the nectar of devotion about these wonderful pastimes, because these are temporary phenomena. They come and they go, and the gopis, the cowherd boys, Krishna and the other devotees relish these humorous pastimes, and then it's time for exchanging another kind of rasa. And in that way, life in Vrindavan is of beautiful ecstasy, different types of rasas. Heard a little these humorous pastimes, Krishna. I hope.
Question is from Kanika Mataji. She's saying, as we are hearing of devotees leaving their bodies due to coronavirus, how should we understand this properly from the eye of the scriptures?
The important thing to see is that coronavirus is not the only disease that afflicts humanity. And coronavirus is not the only reason why people have left their bodies. Disease has always been in the material world and will always exist. The nature of the diseases, the names of the diseases, etc., the types of diseases may change. But disease is always there in the material world. And devotees also, what to speak of others, they have in the past also left their body for various reasons. Some devotees left their body because of a heart attack, somebody left because of, let's say, some kidney failure problem, or some other reason like that. And some may even have left in their sleep, perhaps. So there could be so many different ailments and circumstances under which people leave their bodies, devotees included. So in any case, this life is temporary. We are destined to live a certain number of breaths or number of years in this world, in this body. And the nimitta, or the instrument for our departure from this particular material body, could be anything. It could be coronavirus, it could be cancer, it could be kidney failure, it could be heart failure, it could be anything. So there is nothing extraordinary about coronavirus per se. except that is just a dangerous disease for which we don't have a cure. There are other diseases for which, so it doesn't mean that because we are devotees, these diseases don't strike us. So in that sense, there is nothing exceptional about the coronavirus. And certainly there is nothing extraordinary that some devotees have passed away with that, inasmuch as devotees have passed away for other reasons also. Of course, when devotees leave their bodies, leave this world,
Maya is not under the rasas.
oh, Rudra is also infectious. Everything is infectious. Try getting angry at somebody next time and you'll see why the response, that it is infectious. The other person will also become very angry with you. If you become angry at someone, the other person is also likely to become angry with you. And then perhaps a third person around may also get angry. So similarly with fear. If some person is fearful on those who are around, so others are also infectious. But yes, Hasya has a special kind of charm about it, which is very relishable. Okay, any other question?
Smash, thank you. We've got quite a lot of questions here. We've got a little bit more time still. So, another question is, before reaching the I have another question here from Divya Garangi Mataji. She's saying, Maharaj, these pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan are so nectarian and pleasing. How can I always remember these and be happy, especially in testing times?
Read Nectar of Devotion, read Srimad Bhagavatam, read other books of Srila Prabhupada regularly, and then we will experience something very nice and wonderful. And hear and chant, of course, also. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Question here from Charu Mataji. Thank you for a wonderful class. My question is, does our laughter depend on our nature or the way we are nurtured?
Technical question. I guess both. Both. Like, for example, not only the nature, yes, some people are by nature very uproarious in their laughter. Some people laugh softly, some people laugh very loudly by nature. Also in terms of nurture, yes, for example, there is a certain etiquette to be followed, that when we are in the presence of respectable personalities, we do not laugh loudly, very loudly, so, and even generally extremely loud laughter in normal civil discourse is not considered a very, shall we say, decent thing to do. And especially if there are other people around. Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, another question from Sham Priya Mataji from London. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful class. Could you please explain whether Abhimanyu was Krishna's expansion? In the painting you showed us, Abhimanyu was also painted in the sham color, similar to Krishna's complexion. Thank you.
These are all energies of the Lord. They are especially created is the wrong word, but they manifested, probably that is better. They are all manifested to enrich and further sweeten the Madhuri Rasa pastimes of Krishna. So, factually, of course, Abhimanyu is not Srimati Radharani's husband. It's just a make-believe kind of thing, where Radharani is led to believe that she is married to Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu is led to believe that he is married to Radharani. So it's a kind of a, conception like that. Huh? Yes. Any other questions?
Maharaj, we have quite a few. One general question. Hare Krishna Maharaj from Rachna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. I want to please ask a person who takes Sharanamrita, and if that person wouldn't leave their body by accident.
If somebody
is taking Sharanamrita, is it that they wouldn't leave their body in an accident or shorten their life in that way?
Well, there is a verse like that, Akala mrityu haranam sarva papa pranashanam vishnur padodakam pitva dharyami shirasaham. So, the verse that says that Akala mrityu haranam Vishnur padodakam pitva. Vishnu pad is the lotus feet of Vishnu. Udakam means the water. Pitva means having drunk. Dharayami means I hold. Shirasa upon my head. Aham. So I hold the Charanamrita of Lord Vishnu on my head, and that will protect me. That will protect me from Akala Mrityu, which means untimely death. Haranam means to take away. So that will protect me from untimely death, Akala Mrityu, and Akala Mrityu Haranam Sarva Vyadhi Vinashanam. So from all diseases as well. So this is generally one of the mantras that is chanted when one takes Charanamrita. Of course, our motivation for taking Charanamrita is not to get free from disease or untimely death, but our motivation is to get Krishna Prema. So when we partake of Charanamrita, our motivation is that. Now, whether incidentally as a byproduct we are also saved from untimely death, well, what is timely, untimely is up to Krishna. And we don't really get into that because ultimately Krishna is the best judge of what's the right time and what's the best way for us to leave this world. Next.
Maharaj, there seems to be some background noise. Maybe just one last question. Okay. We have a question here from Raymond Klein. And it says, I'm always in the mood of a warrior and can easily get upset. I do wish to change and become calm and peaceful. When I read Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then the question is, why individuals like that have done ISKCON temples, Prahlad Maharaj has approved Archana as 9 forms of bhakti.
I didn't follow.
Why individual Archanas are not done in ISKCON temples?
Why are individual
Archanas are not done in ISKCON temples?
Individual Archanas, what does that mean? I don't follow.
Prahlad Maharaj has approved Archana as one of the 9 forms of bhakti.
Yes, so when you go to the temple, then part of the Archana process is to go in front of the deities and take darshan. And
there's some background noise.
Yeah. So part of the Archana process is to go in front of the deities and take darshan of the Lord. And then to take the Charanamrita of the Lord, offer obeisances to the Lord, So this is all part of the Archana process. Now, if by individual Archana you mean that why does not every single devotee who goes to the temple perform the worship of the deities directly? That is not possible naturally, because there are hundreds of devotees who may come to the temple. So only the pujaris there will actually do the arati and the dressing and decoration and offering of bhoga and so on. But others who come there also participate in the Archana process. And also devotees may do the individual Archana at their own homes if they have deities or even pictures on their altar. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, one last question.
Okay, yes, we've got lost. Maybe we can take this as the last question. Okay, so the question is from Ava, everyone. Sorry, from Lakshmi, Mataji to everybody. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble respects. I had a question. How do we know that what the Lord wants? When we are talking to Him, when we think of something, do we take it that the Lord wants that and He's trying to tell us that using us as an instrument?
Well, how do we know what the Lord wants? In a general way, we know what the Lord wants by hearing the teachings of the spiritual master. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, we hear the lectures, we understand this is what Krishna wants because this is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavatam. This is what the great devotees say about what Krishna wants and what's good for us. So as a general desire of Krishna, we understand what it is by reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. We read Srila Prabhupada's books and we attend discourses in our temples and so on. Now, when it comes to specific circumstances and us not knowing what is Krishna's desire for us in that circumstance, that's a little more complicated. Where the circumstance is such that it is easy for us to discern or understand based on what we have learned from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, then we can apply that right away. Some things are very simple, so it's not a problem. So we can immediately apply that principle right there. Where things are more complicated, perhaps we can pray, or we can ask devotees, senior devotees who have experience, and we can ask them what they think is a right thing for us to do in a particular circumstance. And even in the absence of anybody, suppose you're in a position where you can't even ask any senior devotees anything, and then just pray to Krishna, remember all that you have learned, and pray to Krishna to give you intelligence, chant the holy names, and do what you think is right. But then when you do get a chance to consult with somebody, check up whether what you've done is right or not. And especially if one is going to do something very significant, any very major development in our life, then it is very important to consult senior devotees before we take such steps. It's always safer. Okay, so thank you all very much once again. I do understand how all of you in the UK are going through a very difficult time, and my heartfelt prayers for all of you, and I'm sure that you will support each other there and take deeper shelter of Krishna consciousness and emerge from this challenging situation with increased faith and devotion. One of the special characteristics of a devotee is that he or she turns adversity into opportunity. So here is an adverse situation, and we can turn it into an opportunity. to make further advancement in Krishna consciousness, to go deeper into our lives, to introspect further. So we are usually always complaining for time. We say we don't have time to read, time to do this in Krishna consciousness or that. So now we have time. So this is the time that we can read, we can chant, we can hear, and even other things. If you're living in an ashram, you can bond better with the devotees around you. If you're living at home with your family members, you can bond better with them. So these are occasions where the adversity can be turned into an opportunity for advancement. So thank you all very much. And I'm sure you'll be having many other nice classes throughout in the next few days. Okay, so Sankirtan Priya Prabhu, is that all right?
That is very much wonderful, Maharaj. Thank you ever so much for taking out the time from India to speak to us and address us so wonderfully. It's always nectarian to hear the pastimes of Krishna like this, and always amazing to have your association. Though not physically, but virtually, we are able to hear you and take your darshans and blessings.
Thank you. And I hope all of you are well protected. You're taking all the precautions and especially masking up. Please do that. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Sankirtan.